Because some people have difficulty feeling the support at the base of the torso, I devised this very simple exercise to help you feel those muscles. Katie's going to squat for us, and basically she's going to waddle. As she's doing this, you can see she's widening the pelvic floor, she's engaging the inner thigh, the hamstrings are lengthening, the hip sockets are opening. It's a very extreme maneuver, but it really does the trick. This is a great maneuver to do while singing. If you have a phrase, particularly with a high note, that bothers you and you have difficulty finding the support for it, try singing that phrase while waddling, and I think you'll be surprised at the power and clarity that comes into your voice just from this simple maneuver. This DVD is all about learning to sing from your core and releasing the extraneous muscle tension in the peripheral muscles. The balancing exercises that Laura is going to show you are a great way to check to see if you've achieved that. Be careful as you do these exercises because you may lose your balance if you're gripping too much with the outside muscles. But if you're pretty good at this, it's a great way to check in with yourself. The first thing Laura is going to do is simply place a book on top of her head and sing in a way that keeps it there. You would follow this through your own comfortable range at home. The next thing Laura is going to do is an exercise. You can balance yourself on a chair, or Laura can put her hand on the edge of the piano. And keeping your pelvis in neutral, Laura is going to lift one leg at a time, keeping the energy coming out through her knee. You can also do this coming up on the balls of your feet, and you'll probably want to keep your arms out to the side to steady yourself. These get trickier and trickier. The last one is very difficult. This is plie releve. These are great ways to help you energize your core because you're doing a physical exercise that requires it, and then your voice will flow out of that same core energy. If you have one of these pieces of exercise equipment at home, this can be a wonderful way to check to make sure that you're using your core instead of your peripheral muscles. Laura will demonstrate. Laura makes it look easy, but if you try this at home, the first time you might want to have a chair or even two chairs, one on each side, because as you do this exercise through your comfortable range and you get to the high notes, if you use a lot of peripheral muscle tension there, you will lose your balance and fall right off of that exercise equipment. This series of exercises promotes release in the external muscles and connection to the core. Lie on the floor with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. Slide 2 balls underneath your body, one just below the base of the skull and one underneath the back of the pelvis. Being supported by the balls in this way should feel quite comfortable and relaxing. There should be no discomfort whatsoever in your body. Mandy is using 2 5-inch balls, but you might require 2 4-inch balls or even one of each size, depending on the length and amount of tension in the back of your body. Experiment with different sizes of balls to find the ones that suit you best. The first thing we want you to accomplish in this series of exercises is for you to feel the delicious physical sensation of allowing your spine and its beautiful S-curves to be supported by the balls, so that you can begin to imagine the ease you will feel in the body when you learn to support from the core. The next exercise involves moving the head side to side without losing that release of the external muscles. Release the neck into length over the ball. If you push into length, you will lose that released feeling in the spine. And slowly turn the head to the left, feeling that the top of your left ear, rather than your chin, is leading the way. It may be helpful to imagine a horizontal rod going through your skull from one ear to the other, supporting your head. Then, making sure you continue to release the neck into length over the ball and allowing your right ear to lead your head, return to center and then to the right side. Only turn your head as far as you can without losing the sensation of the head being turned from within. Because most of us are not properly aligned and engaged in our core muscles, we have forgotten that this yummy feeling of release in our spine is our birthright, even when standing and moving. The third exercise in this sequence adds movement in the pelvis with the same goal of feeling the pelvis being moved with internal core muscles. Maintaining the spinal release over the balls, move the bottom point of the front of the pelvis, which is often called the pubic bone, a tiny distance over the ball down toward the floor without engaging the abdominal wall. You can touch the abs with your hand to see if they are shortening and tightening. Then slowly tilt the pelvis up back to where it was and then a little further into a slightly tucked position, again without engaging the abs. Then do the same thing with the head, first tilting the head slightly back over the ball, then coming back to the original position, and then moving the chin slightly toward the chest. As you can see, or not see, in Mandy's demonstration, the movements are very small. This is not about range of motion. It's about feeling internal muscles allowing the movement, rather than grabbing in the external musculature. Once you are able to move the pelvis and the head individually without grabbing, try moving both of them at the same time, checking to make sure that you are not shortening and tightening in the abdominals. You can move the pelvis toward the floor and the head toward the chest in tandem, and then move both pelvis and head toward the ceiling. You can also move them in opposition, with the pelvis and the top of the head moving down toward the floor, and then both coming toward the center of the body. It may take some time for you to feel you have mastered this exercise, and in the beginning, you may feel what I am describing is impossible, but stick with it. In this advanced core connection exercise, you will keep your abdominal wall released while lifting your leg. Lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. You are going to lift your leg without shortening and tightening in the abdominal wall. Keeping the front of your body relaxed and making sure the abdominal wall doesn't tighten and shorten, engage your core muscles to lift one leg off the floor. You don't have to lift it very high. Then lower the leg, making sure the abdominal wall is still long and released. Try using the exercise band to assist the core muscles by helping to lift the leg with your arms. That should make it easier to imagine doing it, even if you're not quite there yet. Then repeat on the other side. You can touch your abdominal wall with your hand to see if those muscles are shortening and tightening. Once you master the previous series of exercises called connecting to the core, this exercise is a good next step. If you can keep the hip sockets open and the abs long, you will be using your core muscles to lift your leg. This makes it a wonderful exercise to check whether you are truly able to access the core muscles. If you have a lot of habitual tension in your abs, you may initially feel that it is impossible to do what I am asking. If it were easy to stop grabbing and shortening the abdominal wall, this would be a very simple exercise. However, most people have great trouble doing that. Just stay with it and keep letting go of the shortening tension in the abs. Sarah's going to demonstrate for us what I call the rib cage breathing exercise. It's an exercise designed to help you feel how the body can take care of the breath for you. I'm going to ask Sarah to put her finger in between a couple of ribs. We're going to start here on the top of her rib cage in the front. What you want to feel is, here's a couple of ribs that your finger can slide in between there. And what I want you to feel on the inhalation is that your finger is moved forward out of that space because the muscle in between the ribs has lengthened and opened. You can't make this action happen, but if you let go and allow your body to breathe for you, you're going to feel that movement. You can see it, it's visible as Sarah's rib cage moves. Whatever your voice teacher is teaching you about which part of the rib cage they want you to breathe into, it's a good idea in your releasing exercises to open up the possibility of movement in the entire rib cage. So we're going to do 6 spots, front, side, back on the top, and front, side, back on the bottom. So now, Sarah, come to the side, under your armpits. Same thing. Put your thumbs in space between your ribs. and allow the breath to move your thumbs out. If you have the habit of manipulating your breath, you're going to have to wait a little bit and circumvent that habit and let your diaphragm do the breathing. Then the rib cage will expand. Now let's go to the upper back, and here you can do it this way with your fingers. If your trapezius muscles are particularly tight, you will not be able to get them in between the ribs, but you'll still feel kind of a generic movement and opening there. Of course, we want the trapezius muscles to become released enough that you could feel it, but for a lot of people that will take some time. Now we're going to stay turned to the back. She's going to put her fingers here on the bottom of the back. This will be a much easier place for you to feel that movement. Fingers in between a couple of ribs, you can see the movement. Just allow the breath to make that happen. We're not talking about you muscularly moving anything. It's the inhalation that's going to move those ribs. Now come around to the side near the bottom of your rib cage. Same thing. If you're ticklish, you might have a little problem here. Don't press too hard, just a nice gentle pressure. And then turn around to the front and find a spot on the bottom of the ribs in the front. Everybody's opening here is a different size. And just find a place and allow the whole rib cage, all those intercostal muscles around the rib cage, that freedom of movement in the breath. This is a breathing exercise that I designed to help you go deeper into your support muscles at the end of a phrase, rather than squeezing the external muscles to get those last few notes out. Justin's going to take his hand and place his thumb above the belt line and his fingers below the belt line so that he can feel what's going on in his abdominal wall. Then he's going to exhale on a hiss. What I want you to do at home is at the end of that exhalation, when you feel that you're pretty much out of breath, stop and suspend the breath. Instead of inhaling, see if you can go a little deeper into the scoop and let out a little more of a hiss. And then after you've done that, see if you can do it even one more time. Justin will demonstrate. If you can't do it 3 times at home at first, just keep practicing with it. This will train your body at the end of a long phrase not to squeeze from the outside, but to stay with that deep internal support. When you need a little more power, then we use what I call the umbrella breath. So if you will imagine an umbrella, the top of an umbrella, that shape inside your mouth, coming from your hard palate, back through your soft palate, and all the way around the occipital region. So it bisects your head inside there where the hard and soft palate are. And if you think of a central point and you stretch out that umbrella top in every direction with a dynamic tension, you can give that dynamic tension a number. Say on a scale of 1 to 10, perhaps today you're feeling a 3. If you keep working at it, soon you'll feel a 4 and a 5. Being able to have control over that palatal tension is going to help your singing considerably. The umbrella breath is simply this, that dynamic tension of the top of the umbrella opening coupled with the dynamic tension of the shaft of the umbrella moving away from the top. So inhaling, exhaling, you feel that energetic supported release and not a closing of the umbrella, not a squeezing. So if you'll try this when you're trying to sing a higher note or a louder note and you can feel yourself pushing, take a step back, find the and then feel that umbrella energy, and it'll help you find the sound that you're looking for without extraneous effort.